Next up, we've got Sergei Pavlovich taking on Tom Aspinall. Fantastic fight here as well. Another fight put together on short notice, and two guys that I like, but definitely like Sergei Pavlovich more as a fighter. He's fun to watch, guys. He's a absolute knockout threat. He goes out there and he's looking to take guys out in the first round. He's looking to walk people down and put that Russian power on them, man. He's got power in his hands. He's an excellent boxer. He's got good hand speed for this heavyweight division. And so far, so good, right? He came in, and I think that the UFC, this is my perception, and I could be wrong here, but I felt like what we saw from Sergei Pavlovich on his rise through the division, right, was that the UFC came in and saw this heavyweight guy with a lot of wins, a lot of finishes, and they're like, man, let's put him in there with Overeem. Let's get him a big win, and let's put a rocket ship on this guy, send him to the moon. And he goes in there against Overeem, and he was a little too green. He got those debutante jitters. He got beat up a little bit, and he got finished badly by Alistair Overeem. But he came in there, and I believe he headlined that card, guys, in his very first UFC fight. So when I think about that, I'm like, man, they've had their eye on this guy for a while. They bring him in. They try and put him in a high-profile situation. Doesn't work out. So then what did they do? How did the UFC respond? Well, now he's 18-1 as a professional. How did it change? He goes from 12-0 against Overeem, takes the L in that spot, beats Marcelo Gome via instant knockout. I'll retweet my notes on that fight. I tweeted them out last time he was fighting, and guys, it's literally less than one. The screenshot is less than a Twitter icon. It's 140 characters or less. All the notes on the fight with Marcelo Gome, it was very quick. Maurice Green, another guy, low-level heavyweight, just dispatches of him easily. Shamil Abdurakhimov, a guy that is big, brawlic Russian, kind of gives people a little bit of an awkward go. There was the clip last week going around of him punching Jailton Almeida right in the face after catching the kick in the early going. So I think that there's a lot of, good notes about that fight, right? Sergei Pavlovich had the right idea there, was able to stuff takedowns, I believe, as well, if my memory serves. But either way, just getting to guys early with the power, takes out Derek Lewis, takes out Tai Tuivasa, takes out Curtis Blades, 3 in a row. And that is what brings him to this situation. He was the backup fighter, I believe, scheduled for the John Jones and Stipe Miocic fight. And unlike poor Mateus Gamrot, he didn't get screwed out of the shot. Sergei Pavlovich instead gets the opportunity here to step in on short notice. And I think that Tom Aspinall is a solid fighter. I think he's got good skills everywhere, but I do still have some question marks about Aspinall, right? I tried to fade him with Alexander Volkov, and that was a spot where Volkov went out there. He looked a little bit old in that fight. He looked a little bit slow, and I believe he had just had a child. I don't know if he slept enough in that camp. My guy just did not look like he was in a good position, right? I felt like Tom Aspinall has exceeded my expectations in some ways. Guys with British wrestling and grappling accolades don't always turn out, but we saw last week with Mark Diakese, he was able to get it done against a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt from Brazil. And in this, spot, Tom Aspinall, I do think, has proven more on the ground in the UFC. Right. We've seen from Tom Aspinall, he's got, a knowledge of submissions. He's got a knowledge of the passing game. He's got an ability to move around on the mat. But I think that some of the takedowns that Aspinall's been getting have been people that weren't really expecting him to wrestle, and kind of got caught by surprise. Arlovsky, if you guys remember that fight, was starting to get off on some shots. He did get beat up by Aspinall in the early going, but Aspinall kind of spent himself looking for the KO there. Then was starting to gas out, it looked like, but got the easy takedown and the easy submission in round 2 in that spot. But I remember thinking there, man, is this guy for real? Then he goes out there against Sergey Spivak. That was the worst looking Sergey Spivak, that I've ever seen. And he also hit him with a knee to the body and an elbow up top and got the finish very elementary fashion. That's a combination that he used to take out Jake Collier as well. If you got a soft body at heavyweight, if you got that big belly, Aspinall can be very savvy with that knee to the body and that elbow break combination. I think that Pavlovich will probably be hip to that in this spot. And I think he's going to want to try and keep distance. I think that if you're Aspinall, you dealt with a leg injury in the UFC, right? Went down to the knee injury against Curtis. So when I think about that, I'm like, is he going to throw a lot of leg kicks here? Because I think that one of the ways you want to take out a guy like Pavlovich is you want to try and get that lead leg, out from underneath him. He's a boxer. He wants to get in your face and box with you. So if you're going to fight a guy who wants to box, look at what Jonathan Martinez did to Adrian Yanez. It actually lays out a great blueprint. You want to take out their lead leg. You want to prevent that ability to get off with clean jabs, for example, to step into the pocket, with disregard. And so when I think about this matchup, beating Marcin Tybura doesn't tell me much. Marcin Tybura kind of folds up shop against these more athletic guys. Alexander Volkov, a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth, has been finished on a couple of occasions. He's historically pretty durable, but if you've got real skills at heavyweight, you can cause him some problems. Sergey Spivak, a guy that is a little bit hit and miss, right? In his losses, he looks terrible. In his wins, he tends to look pretty dominant. So he's a little bit up and down in that way. Alain Badeau, Andre Arlovsky, Jake Collier. I don't mean to lump them all together. Obviously, Andre Arlovsky, former champion, but he's certainly past his prime, long since past his prime. And like I said, that was a somewhat competitive fight at various points. And then on the other side of things, Alain Badeau, horrible fighter, just not very good. Jake Collier, not very good. So I don't think that Tom Aspinall has necessarily proven all that much. I would actually argue that the run of wins for Sergei Pavlovich is slightly more impressive. And on top of that, the way that he dominated on the Russian regional scene, in my opinion, is slightly more impressive than what Aspinall was managing on the UK regional scene. Because part of my skepticism about Aspinall is he does show losses inside the distance against Stuart Austin and Lucas Parabiak. Now, granted, the Lucas Parabiak loss was a disqualification, but the Stuart Austin loss was like a really comical heel hook type loss. Not a good look in that spot. Granted, it was a long time ago. That was all the way back in 2015. I don't think he's getting heel hooked by Sergei Pavlovich, but I do just think there are some questionable pieces of footage on the Aspinall side. So I do think he's a good fighter. I think he's very talented. But I also think that if there's a plus money number by Sergei Pavlovich's name, it's probably something I'm going to have to be interested in, because I think that the guy has been nothing but productive as an underdog. He's been explosive with his power. He's been really, really devastating in how he gets after it early. And I worry slightly about his cardio, but I don't think that Aspinall has very proven cardio either. And if my memory serves, let's just take a look. Aspinall has never been to a decision in all of his professional bouts. And I do not think that's the case for our guy Pavlovich. Yeah, Pavlovich is actually 3-0 in fights that go the distance. And let me just see something here. I want to see if any of those fights were scheduled 5 rounds. I know that the first 2 I'm looking at in AMC Fight Nights Global were both unanimous decisions. Yeah, he even has one 5-by-5 minute round unanimous decision when he was 10-0 back in 2017. So I just think Sergei Pavlovich probably going slightly underrated coming into this weekend. I think both guys are real, but I just think, at plus money, I would probably be looking towards the Sergei Pavlovich side. I think Just Win actually hit the nail on the head. Either can win on any given day. No one should be confident on this fight. I agree. So that's why I think it's a dog or pass situation. And I think Pavlovich is just a murderous puncher, really, really dangerous guy. And I kind of feel like if they had put Tom Aspinall in there for his UFC debut against Alistair Overeem, maybe he faces the same fate, because he went in there for his UFC debut against Jake Collier, right? It's just a completely different point of view. So I just think Sergei Pavlovich at plus money, probably on the up and up. But again, first look. So I'll come back to you guys with more educated opinion later in the week, but I've liked Sergei Pavlovich. I bet him for a lot of units against Derek Lewis. So take that for whatever it's worth.